Okay. It's going to start in this morning, I think so.
But, I mean, if you want to sit on the steps or feel free to. But we've got very stern and serious site manager who always, he said nobody in, so I had to double check, triple check with him that it was okay to do this.
It's okay.
Tani whitu ki te rangi ko Ngati Maori ki te whenua, tihei Maori ora. Ko Tainui Tuaka, ko Te Aroha Te Maunga, ko Waiho Te Awa, ko Ngati Tumutumu Te Iwi, ko Rob Thorne. So my name is Rob Thorne, and I play Taonga Puoro, traditional Maori musical instruments. And as part of my whakapapa today, I'd like to say thank you to Liquid Architecture for making this happen for me, and to the Unconformity, and the wonderful people that have organised this part of this end of things. I don't really know how long I've got, but I'm just going to show you a couple of my instruments. So I've been making and playing Taonga Puoro, or traditional Maori musical instruments, for 16 years now. But I actually come from, I guess, a punk and hard rock and free noise background. And it was the free noise aspect that actually allowed me to come into this with an understanding that has grown this particular understanding. So free noise for me is it's a way of making music that has no rules. And so you can make music with non-musical things, and you can also apply you can apply non-musical understandings to make music. All of the instruments that I'm going to show you though are traditional Maori musical instruments, and it's been an interesting revival that's been happening for about 40 years, and it started with people recognising musical instruments in cabinets at museums and realising that as Maori that they hadn't heard these instruments. So they met with museum staff out the back and measured the instruments, and then went home to their own workshops and constructed them. And then once they had the instruments ready to play, then they had to learn to play the instruments. And for me, I didn't have anyone to teach me. And strangely enough, there was no such thing as Google back in 2000 or 99. It's not that long ago, but the internet really has kind of exploded. So I was looking through libraries and not finding anything. So that was where my experimental understanding started to take over, and I started to apply different things to different edges to learn how to play. So this instrument is the Puoro Titi. It is in the Horn's Bostel Sachs system of identifying and cataloguing musical instruments. They list it in a truly scientific way as a spinning disc and as a whizzer, which I think is actually almost an Australian word, or a whirrer. So I love that this instrument has very non-scientific names within the scientific musical system. This instrument, it is known, was a children's toy, and the method of using it is the same method that I use to drill kō'owo and other instruments using the chord drill. So the chord drill applies exactly the same thing. It's also known as an instrument that was used in healing. So it was a musical instrument that was used for healing the lungs. So we could maybe consider the idea around healing lungs as the fact that maybe there's a tone that's being played, and when you hear it played across a microphone, it's got there's a very deep tone to it that you don't hear now. Maybe you kind of can hear it in this small bright room. But my understanding of the way that it could be used in healing is that when you play it, and if you play it for long enough, you end up sore across here. It's good for lifting the ribs away from the lungs. And I actually broke a rib a while back, and it was the second time that I'd broken that rib. And the ambos said to me, "Oh, have you had pneumonia?" Which I had pneumonia. And they said, "Oh, you're going to get it again because of this broken rib." So I went home and played painfully for 2 weeks, and I didn't get pneumonia. So that's just a personal anecdote, which I find is quite important, that they need to be personal rather than me telling other people's stories. So that's the Puoro Titi. My instruments love to hear their names, so if you want to talk to me about my instruments afterwards, you need to ask me by its name.
Puoro Titi.
So if you want to say that, we can all speak some Maori together today. It's the Puoro Titi. Oh, you guys are a fantastic class. So you'll see it's just basically a piece of wood. It's got 2 holes. They work really well when they're 5 mil apart. Traditional Maori 5 mil. Get out the traditional Maori ruler there. And then it's just a loop of string through. I remember my grandmother, who I whakapapa through, so she was the granddaughter of the last full-blooded Maori chief in our family. And I remember her teaching me how to make these when I was a kid. And we used big button jacket buttons, and actually you'll find in the English canon that the spinning discs, they're also called button on a string. Now that's something that I didn't realise at the time, but now as an adult and with my 15 years of research, I realised was quite profound, because as a young girl, she was born at a time where they were legislating against anything Maori, so she was strapped at school for speaking Maori in the playground. And her mother also washed her mouth out with soap when she heard her speaking, and it was, like I was threatened with certain things, like I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap, but it never happened. But for her it did. Okay. This is Ko'owo Tōror. Tōror is the Maori word for albatross. This is wing bone of an albatross, to give you an idea of how big the bird was. This is this bone, and actually I love using these bones for flutes, but these bones we actually use for chisels. So we'd cut the end off and then sharpen on a stone and use them for chisels. But I particularly like this shape. It was this bone that we used for flutes, and they're more of a teardrop shape on the inside. So it went here, and then there was another bone here, and another bone, just a shorter bone here. So this bird, its wing was as long as my arm was. Of course, its body wasn't as big as my body was, even though I'm just a small fella. So Ko'owo Tōror. It's Ko'owo Tōror. I'm not going to say anything more about it because I think that it speaks for itself. So predominantly within the Taonga Puoro Kiti, with Maori instruments, they're mostly flutes and horns. We have percussion instruments, we tap stones, and we also made large wooden gongs. We call them pahu, which is the same word that's used in the Pacific for skin drums, but there's nothing in the myths or legends or in the stories or in the museums to suggest that we have. Sure you want to go in there now? that we had skin drums. So we made large wooden gongs and large stone gongs. And there's actually a story of a piece of pounamu, which is New Zealand jade that comes from the west coast of the South Island. It only comes from one place. And it was traded highly and heavily. It was very strong, so it was great for making chisels and tuki or adzes. Of course, the crystalline nature was very precious, and so it was used to make things to wear, needles, all kinds of things. But there is a story about a pahu in Auckland made from pounamu. So from the west coast of the South Island, around Westport, it was carried up to Auckland and put on a hill there. And the story goes that when it was hit, you could hear it all around that area. And then it became slowly diminished as people cut pieces off it to make tools and instruments and taonga. And then there is a story about how to keep it precious and to keep it away from the colonial invaders, they put it in a waka and they rowed it out into the harbour and they dumped it in the ocean out there. So extremely heavy, but an amazing piece of stone. Actually, you've got in the gallery here, the museum here, there's the Gallery Museum. There's a small piece listed as New Zealand jade. This is the putorino. This is a flute and a horn. There are traditions and myths and legends around it being played as a flute and being played as a horn. In the Renaissance and the revival in the last 30 and 40 years, there's been a belief that maybe there was a third voice because of its name. Torino, toru is the Maori word for three. So there's been an exploration into finding other voices. I can play it 4 ways. Just because I can doesn't mean that it was done that way traditionally. And the third way that everyone accepts it, and it sounds very beautiful. So we include that in our playing method nowadays. This is the shape of the native New Zealand case moth or bag moth. I do know that in Australia you have a number of species of bag moths. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say the bag moth? So it's a tiny little moth that lives in a bag and hangs off the branch. I remember growing up seeing them under the eaves or under bridges. Hine Rokotodi is the goddess of Maori flute music, and she lives in the bag. She is the moth, and so the putorino is an embodiment of Hine Rokotodi. She is said to have the most beautiful voice in all of the forest, and the story goes that she comes to the top of her bag. Now she is a moth, but she is wingless and feelerless and eyeless. And she never gets past that caterpillar stage. She sings to attract her mate. He arrives and they make love, and she lays her eggs in the bottom of the case and then dies, which I'm sure as mothers, those of us that are mothers will understand what that's like as you watch your children grow. And then the children exit through a hole that they make in the case. And then they go and make their own bags. The boys grow on to become moths, and the girls carry on being in the bag. So that's the puto reno. So be my good class. Can you say puto reno?
Puto reno.
Ah, what? You are my cousins. This is the putatara. The conch appears all around the world. You'll even find the conch in Tibet, close to the highest mountains in the world, far from the sea. There are other cultures that put mouthpieces on it. We also play them without mouthpieces. This is a native New Zealand conch. They're small, they really don't. This is quite a large one. This is actually from the islands, this one. The mouthpiece is made out of wood. Symbolically and culturally, therefore, we have a marriage here between the god of the sea and the god of the forest. The situation being that where those two meet on the beach, this is where you find them. The putatara was used as a signalling device, also there are stories about it being used musically to accompany waiata or song. Says the putatara.
So nice. Those frequencies are incredible.
So yeah, the Buddhists believe that the conch contains all the sounds of the universe, heard and unheard. Are we going? I'll just keep going. I can talk for hours. Now that I've got you here. I like showing people this one. This is a cockle shell. Okay, just a little one. I like playing this one and talking about this one because it kind of embodies a whole lot to do with Maori culture and the way that we understand the world. I also like the way that it's kind of a little trick when it comes to the archaeology of musical instruments. So this is a karanga manu, so it's a bird caller. We also make them out of stone and wood. So here's a karanga manu, made out of soapstone. It's just got a small depression in it at the top. In Te Ao Māori, we believe that we are what we are because of where we come from, and that we cannot understand where we're going unless we understand where we've come from. Actually, the word whakapapa means to lay out. So whakapapa is a word that represents a number of things, but in direct translation, it's about genealogy. So whakapapa is there's a place in New Zealand called Whakapapa, which is a ski field, and it's a mountain, and there's a story about there being a battle and a lot of deaths, and the victors laying out all of the dead people, their own and their enemy, and climbing the mountain and looking at them. And so it's about laying out. The whakapapa is about the laying out. Now, when we come to understand this in terms of time, as Maori, we believe that we walk backwards into time because we can't see the future, but we can see the past. So we walk backwards into the future. And the whakapapa is what is laid out in front of us. So that's why we talk about our genealogy and our whakapapa, and we talk about how it's laid out in front of us. The instruments more than represent, they embody the places that they come from. So Hine Okatodi, she grows in the forest, she lives in the forest, and this is made from rako, or wood, or tree. We talk about the shell, has been coming from the ocean, and so it is the sound of the ocean. And I find when I play to small children particularly, that when I play this, half of them say it sounds like a cow, and I bet you that they're farmers' children. And the other half say that it sounds like a whale. The albatross, it's the highest instrument we have. To me, it's the most poignant, and there's a sad song within it. The albatross flies the highest of all the birds that there are. They mate for life, and yet they spend 2/3 of their life on the wing, and when they're on the wing, they live alone. So they're always away from the ones that they love. The karanga manu, this is a cockle shell, comes from the beach, and it sounds like something else that comes from the beach. Yes! A+. Seal? Yeah.
Sounds a lot like a kite in Central Australia.
Ah, okay. Choo! Oh, like the hawk.
Yeah.
What we call a hawk. Yeah. Excellent. So I also really like this when I'm teaching about our understandings of revival and Renaissance. How it was the rediscovery of the instruments that led back to the making of the instruments, that led back to the playing of the instruments, and then the playing of the instruments being played to the older people. That was when they came forth. The sounds triggered memories, and that's where a lot of our stories come from. So it's a bit like the tail wagging the dog or the cart leading the horse. And so I like to encourage people to think differently and to think outside the square. So when I say that if this was found in an archaeological dig, would we list this as a musical instrument and put it into the musical instrument catalogue? And of course the answer is no, of course not. But it's the stories that have led us to understand that yep, we played cockle shells as bird callers. It was the sound of the making of them that's then the older people who are now no longer with us said, oh yes, I remember playing those, my grandma taught me. Right? Also, I think it's a great thing because there's thousands on the beach ready to go, and so you don't need a pocket. You don't need to take it home with you. You go to the beach, you want to use it, it's there at your feet, ready to go. And there are stories about conchas, the more special ones of course with the mouthpieces, they were kept and passed on and traded. But ones like this, there are stories about them being kept in sand dunes, and there would always be someone watching the swimmers, and when the sharks arrived, or the fishes, when the sharks arrived, they'd play them and they'd get out of the water, and then they'd just push them back into the sand and keep them there. Right. How we going?
We're about ready to make
Okay.
One.
One more?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got here a tiny little piece of dried kelp. I've got another piece of kelp here. So there's a story, these instruments these particular ones are called ko'owo. They're short, open-ended, hollow tubular flutes, played obliquely, which is the diagonal method that I've been using with the other two flutes. There's a story about the instrument, the ko'owo, being called the ko'owo because there was a particular kind of hollow kelp that was called ko'owo. This is a very funny and strange looking one. With my mentors, the older people that kind of led the way, when I first found this, I took it to them and they went, oh, don't be ridiculous. You know? and I was convinced that I'd found the Ko'owo. They were all using other kinds of seaweed and kelp, and they were getting the Makita drill and they were drilling out the kelp. But the story was always that it was hollow. It was found hollow. So I even consulted kelp and seaweed experts who said no, there's no such thing as hollow kelp. But the story goes that it was found hollow on the beach, and it was Great Barrier Island, just in the Hauraki Gulf off the Coromandel, that 10 years into my research, after finding this in my first year of research, it was 10 years into my research, that I found a whole island covered in the stuff. All different sizes, and when we started to find large pieces that were this big, then the old fellas started to believe me. The interesting thing is that this is actually my best Ko'owo. There's no weni or finger holes in it. It's tiny, but it gives me the best range. So I call this one Ko'owo, because it is the Ko'owo made from Ko'owo. Great, I think you're ready to go in now. Is that right?